Want to learn your target language for free? Then get our language gifts of the month right now, before they expire. Here's what you're getting this month. First, the Going to the Movies conversation cheat sheet. With this new cheat sheet, you'll learn to say phrases like, "Does this have subtitles? When does the movie start?" and much more. Second, the How to Talk About Your Feelings PDF ebook. You'll learn over 90 words and phrases for feelings with this bonus PDF picture ebook. Download and review it on any device. Third, 30 must-know opposite adjectives. Learn how to say young and old, hot and cold, and much more. You'll pick up over 30 words with this vocab bonus. Fourth, can you talk about people's appearances? With this quick 1-minute lesson, you'll learn to describe others with words like tall, short, muscular, and much more. Fifth, want the language learning app that actually gets you speaking? Download Innovative Language 101 for free for the Android, iPhone, and iPad. You'll unlock hundreds of bite-sized audio and video lessons made by real teachers and start speaking in minutes. And finally, the deal of the month. If you want to finally master the language with lessons by real teachers and our complete language learning program, get up to 45% off our 6-month challenge sale. To get your gifts and language learning resources, click the link in the description below. Download them right now before they expire. Helicopter. 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 So a helicopter is similar to an airplane. It flies, but there's one propeller on top of it. The CEO travels to work by helicopter. The CEO travels to work by helicopter. The CEO travels to work by helicopter. Black. 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 Black is a color, or rather, black is the absence of color. It's the darkest color that we have. I have a black cat. I have a black cat. I have a black cat. Brown. 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 So brown is a very natural color. It's very common on hair color and an eye color. My hair color is brown, for example. My uncle has a new pair of brown shoes. My uncle has a new pair of brown shoes. My uncle has a new pair of brown shoes. Gray. 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 So gray is a very neutral color. It's between white and black. Gray is not a very flashy color. Gray is not a very flashy color. Gray is not a very flashy color. Rest. 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 So rest is a verb that means to take a break. You can use it anytime you need to stop what you're doing for a short period. I'm just resting. I'm just resting. I'm just resting. Here. 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 So the verb here is used for any time you need to use your ears to receive information. So this means you're not focusing your attention, but information can enter your ear. I can barely hear you. I can barely hear you. I can barely hear you. Want. 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 So the verb want is used to express a desire for something. We use it to talk about the things we would like to receive. I want to eat cherries. I want to eat cherries. I want to eat cherries. Disgusting. 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 Disgusting is an adjective. We'd use it to describe things that we think are really, really terrible, especially food or maybe even comments, things that we think are really unacceptable. Cockroaches are disgusting. Cockroaches are disgusting. Cockroaches are disgusting. 11. 11. 11. 11 is the number that comes after 10. This department store has 11 floors. This department store has 11 floors. This department store has 11 floors. 12. 12. 12. So 12 is the number that comes after 11. 12 can also be called a dozen. When we refer to a dozen of something, we mean 12 of something. It's 12 o'clock. It's 12 o'clock. It's 12 o'clock. 13. 13. 13. 13 is the number that comes after 12. For many people, 13 is an unlucky number, so you might hear people having suspicions around this number. She's 13 years old. She's 13 years old. She is 13 years old. Email. 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 So email is a very common part of everyday life. Email comes from electronic and mail together. What's your email address? What's your email address? What's your email address? Cellular phone. Cellular phone. Cellular phone. So a cellular phone is a very common thing that many people have. We often shorten this expression to cell phone. With a cellular phone, you can make calls from almost anywhere. With a cellular phone, you can make calls from almost anywhere. With a cellular phone, you can make calls from almost anywhere. Text message. Text message. Text message. So a text message is any message that you send by writing text. We commonly shorten this expression to just text. She contacted me via text message. She contacted me via text message. She contacted me via text message. Mouth. 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 So the mouth is part of the body. It's this part. We use it for eating and for speaking. You may also hear mouth used to talk about the part of the river that connects to the ocean. Watch your mouth. Watch your mouth. Watch your mouth. Cheek. 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 So the cheek, or cheeks, refers to this part of the body, this part of the face. So we have two cheeks. It's a countable noun. Her cheeks are very red. Her cheeks are very red. Her cheeks are very red. Nose. 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 So the nose is another part of the body. It's this part of the body right here, the nose. My nose is stuffy. My nose is stuffy. My nose is stuffy. Notebook. 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 So a notebook is usually a small book we carry around and we write notes in it, hence the name notebook. I have a separate notebook for each class. I have a separate notebook for each class. I have a separate notebook for each class. Pencil. 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 A pencil is something that we use to write. This is a common analog tool that we use to write. Lots of school children use these. The pencil broke in half. The pencil broke in half. The pencil broke in half. Eraser. 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 So an eraser is a tool that we use to remove pencil marks. In some cases, you might find pens that also have erasers, which can remove pen marks. Can I use your eraser? Can I use your eraser? Can I use your eraser? White, white, white. So white is another very basic color. The color white is commonly associated with purity. It is difficult to keep white furniture clean. It is difficult to keep white furniture clean. It is difficult to keep white furniture clean. Red, red, red. Red is a very popular color. This color is associated with passion and also emergencies. A glass of red wine, please. A glass of red wine, please. A glass of red wine, please. Green, green, green. The color green is very commonly associated with nature and the environment. He painted the wall green. He painted the wall green. He painted the wall green. Finish, finish, finish. The verb finish means to do something to the end, to do something to completion. Did you finish your homework? Did you finish your homework? Did you finish your homework? Start, start, start. So the verb to start is the opposite of finish. It means to begin something. It means to do the first thing in a process. My new job starts tomorrow. My new job starts tomorrow. My new job starts tomorrow. Become, become, become. So the verb become is used to refer to one thing turning into another thing. Red mixed with yellow becomes orange. Red mixed with yellow becomes orange. Red mixed with yellow becomes orange. 14, 14, 14. The number 14 is the number after 13. I have 14 students. I have 14 students. I have 14 students. 15, 15, 15. The number 15 is the number that comes after 14. I will be in Thailand for 15 days. I will be in Thailand for 15 days. I will be in Thailand for 15 days. 16, 16, 16. The number 16 comes after 15. 16 is considered a special age in the USA because it's the age at which people can get their first driver's license. We have 16 minutes. We have 16 minutes. We have 16 minutes. Telephone, telephone, telephone. So the telephone is the machine that we use to call people. We commonly shorten this word to phone. The telephone is ringing. The telephone is ringing. The telephone is ringing. I. So the eye, or our eyes, this is the part of the body that we use to see. This is a countable noun. We can talk about one eye or two eyes. My eyes are dry. My eyes are dry. My eyes are dry. Teeth. 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 So your teeth are the part of the body inside the mouth that we use to chew things. This is the plural version of tooth. One tooth, two or more teeth. Did you brush your teeth? Did you brush your teeth? Did you brush your teeth? Lip. 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 So the lip is the part of the body that is at the edge of the mouth. Lips are very important for making proper pronunciation. You have something on your lip. You have something on your lip. You have something on your lip. Copy machine. Copy machine. Copy machine. So a copy machine is a very common machine that you have in an office. We use a copy machine to make copies of documents. Can I use the copy machine? Can I use the copy machine? Can I use the copy machine? Desk. 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 A desk is a piece of furniture that most people have in their office or in their schools, and we use it for work. We use it for work or for study. The books are under the desk. The books are under the desk. The books are under the desk. Book. 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 So a book is something that you read. It's a story or other kinds of topics on paper. You might also have many textbooks in your home. There are some old books on the table. There are some old books on the table. There are some old books on the table. Pen. 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 A pen is something that we use to write. Unlike a pencil, a pen uses ink. It's a pen. It's a pen. It's a pen. Post office. Post office. Post office. The post office is the place where you go in your city or your community to send mail to someone else. The post office is open until 5 p.m. The post office is open until 5 p.m. The post office is open until 5 p.m. Library. 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 A library is a place where you can rent books. Your library might also have DVDs or other media available to rent. The library is over there. The library is over there. The library is over there. Supermarket. 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 The supermarket is the place you go to buy food. You might also be able to find other daily goods like cleaning goods at a supermarket. This supermarket is very cheap. This supermarket is very cheap. This supermarket is very cheap. Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, I'm going to introduce some spelling tips. These are a few tips that I hope can help you to improve your spelling. I prepared these tips with English in mind, but I think some of these tips could work for other languages that you're studying too. So let's get started. Okay. The first tip and the most important tip for improving your spelling is to read. Reading is really, really important because you can actually see the words on the page. So especially in English, there are many words that are pronounced differently from the way they are spelled. Reading can help you familiarize yourself, can help you better understand the correct way to spell a word, not just listening to the word, but actually looking at the word. So reading is very important. When you read, however, there's one thing that's good to keep in mind. There's one thing that's good to think about. So choose books or newspapers or magazines for reading, But what you should do is make sure you read and listen to things as well. I'll talk about this. Read things that have been edited. Edited means someone checked the text to make sure there are no errors, there are no mistakes. So make sure that you are reading things that have been checked. A lot of native speakers, especially on like social media such as Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, they'll post messages, sure, but they're not checked, like the English is not properly checked, or they're using very informal English. So when you read and when you're practicing your spelling, paying attention to the words when reading, make sure you're choosing things that have been edited so that you can be sure you're reading proper English. Sometimes when we're speaking casually or writing casually, we don't think very much about our grammar or our spelling. So please make sure to use materials that have been edited for your spelling studies. I mentioned also listening. If you like, another thing you can do as you read is choose a book that has an audio version. So that means as you read the book, you can listen to the pronunciation at the same time. Of course, if you're busy too, you can just listen to the audio and learn the story. But if you want to practice your pronunciation and listening skills in addition to your spelling and reading skills, you can consider trying an audio book. So you read along and listen at the same time. So this could be another interesting way to practice a few skills at the same time. But this is the most important tip for this lesson, is to read. Read lots. And this is something you can do every day as well. If you find an online magazine or a newspaper or something similar that you enjoy, you could read it on your way to work, for example, or maybe during lunch, for example. Just a few minutes here and there each day to practice your reading skills and to boost your spelling skills. Okay, let's move along to the next tip. The next tip here is to play word games or to do word puzzles. We have a lot of these in English. I've given a couple examples here. So word games and word puzzles are similar. I'll introduce first what's called a crossword puzzle. So this is what a crossword puzzle looks like. A blank crossword puzzle, this is a brand new one, a simple one I made, is made from boxes. The boxes go from left to right and from top to bottom. When you play a crossword puzzle or when you try to complete a crossword puzzle, your job is to read clues that are next to the puzzle. Each clue matches with a row or a column of boxes. So your job is to find the word that matches this clue. And you have to spell the word correctly to put the letters into the boxes. So I prepared a very simple one here. So I've numbered these as 1, 2, and 3 going down. So here I have hints 1, 2, and 3. Again, this is very simple. Usually crossword puzzles are very big and they have lots of clues. But just to show you how a crossword puzzle works. The first clue here, number 1, this says a yellow fruit. A yellow fruit. So a yellow fruit is a lemon. So we place each letter in the box, L-E-M-O-N. We know the spelling is correct, or we can have a pretty good guess, at least, that the spelling is correct because it fits in the box. Then we look at the next clue, number 2 down here. Number 2, oh sorry, I made a mistake. Number 2 should actually be here. Number 2 is eye accessories, eye accessories. So an accessory is a small piece of clothing, or like jewelry, for example. In this case, it's for your eyes. So eye accessories, that's glasses. So we write glasses with one letter in each box, glasses, and it fits here. It also fits with the L from lemon from our first clue. So glasses is here. Finally, the last clue down here, the clue is something that costs no money. Something that costs no money. So a word we can use to describe this is free, F-R-E-E. So this is a very simple example of a crossword puzzle, but your job is to fit the different vocabulary words together. Like I said, this is simple, but there are lots more challenging ones out there. If you're interested in crossword puzzles, you can do a quick Google search and you can find beginner crossword puzzles, more difficult ones, and there are some extremely challenging ones that you need to know a lot about, like history or science or pop culture, to find the answers. But this is a really fun way to improve your spelling because you have to make sure to have the spelling right in order to finish the puzzle. You can do this alone or with friends. It's fun. Another thing, you can play word games. So this is kind of a more general thing. I've listed a couple examples of word games. There's one very popular and very well-known word game called Scrabble. It looks similar to a crossword puzzle, but the difference is there are no clues, there are no hints. You play with a group of people, and each person has to make words from the letters. So imagine you have a lot of little single letters, and your job is to create words from those letters. You put the words on the board, and your friends make new words from the words that you choose. So this is a fun way to practice spelling and to kind of think about other things that you can do with the letters that you have. So this is kind of a fun way to practice spelling, I think. If, however, it's difficult for you to get this game or to play this game, you could try this game, Words with Friends. This is a free application, so if you have a smartphone, you can find this online. It's called Words with Friends. It's basically Scrabble, but it's online and it's free. So you can find a partner somewhere in the world. You don't have to talk to that person, but you can play this game, building words from the words your partner makes, and so on, and you try to compete, you try to get the top score in the game to win. So if you want to practice word games, you can try these. There are other word games as well. If you do a quick Google search, you can find some other examples of word games, but these are quite popular. Okay. Finally, there is spelling contests. I included spelling contests here because this is something that we do in the USA, at least. We have a spelling contest for kids that's called the Spelling Bee. So you might have something similar in your country, or you might be interested in participating in the Spelling Bee if you are a young person in the USA. So with spelling contests, each contestant has to spell a word correctly. However, the person has to rely on his or her knowledge of words. So that means maybe the root of the word's history, like where did the word originally come from, how the word is used in a sentence, the part of speech, and so on. So this could be an interesting way to practice your spelling and to practice the history of words. So spelling contests can be fun. Of course, if you don't have an official spelling contest, you can just create a spelling contest with your group of friends. Okay, let's move along to the next tip. The next tip I have here is to memorize some basic rules, some basic spelling rules. So I've included a few examples of just basic rules here. For example, words that end in a shun sound. We often use this T-I-O-N spelling to spell that sound, shun. Another example is words that end in G-H, like enough or rough. So this is an example where the spelling is different from the way it sounds. You might think we should use an F to spell this word, but enough actually ends with a G-H. There are words that end in able or the similar I-B-L-E, like possible, for example, or capable. So remembering these kinds of word endings can help you because they're very, very commonly used. And if you understand how to spell the word roughly, like this, you at least have this sort of rule in your mind. It can help you when you're reading and when you're trying to spell the word. However, there are some cases where you need to remember that the rules are not perfect. So I marked it rules here because it's not like 100% a rule. So a great example is this really common expression. I learned this in school, but this is actually not 100% true. It's helpful sometimes. This rule is I before E except after C. This is a very common spelling rule, which means we should always put I first, I before E. However, when you're spelling a word and C is in the word, we should not follow this rule. That's what this means. So it's kind of helpful in some cases, but there are some situations where this rule is not effective. It doesn't work. So examples where it is okay. Here, receipt. So here we have a C, and the E comes first, the I comes second, which is the opposite here. That's correct. In this word, fried, it's correct. There's no C, so the I is before E, I-E-D. We see the same thing in this word here, cried, as well. So in these examples, it's correct. However, here are a few examples where this rule is not correct, like weird. The E comes first, the I comes second in this word. Weird means strange. Another example, the word height, referring to how tall something is. The E is first, the I is second. Here, the word science, there's a C here, but the I still comes before the E. So remember, if you hear a rule like this or some kind of, expression to help you with your spelling, try to remember that it's not always a perfect rule. They're very helpful sometimes, but you need to consider that there are some exceptions, some things that don't quite fit the rule. Okay, let's go on to the next spelling tip. The next spelling tip is to watch English media with subtitles. To watch English media with subtitles means like movies, TV, YouTube videos as well. So read and listen to the pronunciation at the same time. So the words appear at the bottom of the screen in English. That means not necessarily watching in your native language, but you're listening to the person speaking in English and you're reading the subtitles in English. So you can find a new word perhaps that way, or you can better understand the spelling that way too. So this can be a fun tip. If you know a movie very well, for example, you've seen it many times, you might try to watch it with English subtitles to pick up some new things that you never noticed in the movie before. So this is another fun thing you can do, and you can enjoy media while you study. Okay, so those are a few spelling tips. Remember, the most important thing to do here is read. I really recommend reading. It's fun too. But those are just a few things that you can do to hopefully improve your spelling. If there's something else that you like to do that you think has helped you to be a better speller, please let us know in the comment section of this video. If you have questions or comments or just want to share something as well, please feel free to write it in the comment section too. If you like the video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and we will see you again soon. Bye-bye. Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about the differences between must, have to, and should. I'm also going to talk quickly about the negative forms. I'm going to focus on comparing the very similar meanings of these words. So let's get started. First, let's talk about must. In the negative, we say must not. So must or must not. In British English, you may hear mustn't, but we don't really use this in American English. We usually use must not when we want to use this pattern. So we use must and must not first for official rules. Official rules means, for example, rules at a company or rules at a school, rules at the airport, police, so law-related rules, like things that are related to your society. So official rules. We use must and must not to explain these rules. For example, passengers must show passports at immigration. Passengers must show passports at immigration. This shows it's an official rule. All passengers must show. They have a responsibility. It's the rule. Must expresses this. It's a formal rule-like statement. Must not then. Visitors must not wear shoes inside. Visitors must not wear shoes inside. So that means visitors must take their shoes off before coming inside. So must not wear shoes inside means not allowed. It is prohibited. You may not. It's not allowed. So may not means it's like less formal than must not. Must not is much stronger. I'm not going to cover may in this one. So must not is more formal. It sounds more rule-like, official rule-like. The second use of must and must not is for strong personal advice. Strong is the key here. I'm going to talk more about personal advice later in this lesson, but when you want to express strong personal advice, you can use must or must not. For example, like visiting a doctor's office, or maybe some other kind of health-related issue or something that's very important to someone's life. You can use must and must not to express advice in those situations. For example, you must stop smoking. You must stop smoking. So this might be advice, strong personal advice for a very heavy smoker, someone who smokes a lot. You must stop smoking or you'll die, or you must stop smoking or you're going to get much more sick, for example. Another one, you must not forget to take this medicine. You must not forget to take this medicine. So that means you have a responsibility. It's very important to take this medicine. You must not forget to take this medicine. So we use this for strong personal advice. So strong is an important key word here. We don't use must for like everyday general advice. I will talk about that later. So, official rules, strong personal advice. This is how we use must and must not. Let's continue to the second point for this lesson, which is have to. In the negative, don't have to. For different subjects, doesn't have to in the negative, and in the positive, has to. The same rules will apply to need to as well. Need to. Also have got to in British English. So let's look at how we use this. We use have to and the negative don't have to talk about responsibilities. Responsibilities. So this can mean school responsibilities, work responsibilities, like relationship responsibilities, family responsibilities, the things that we have some kind of obligation to do. So in many cases, we don't want to do these things, but there's some need, there's some responsibility. For example, I have to go to work. I have to go to work. Have to shows it's a responsibility. I have to go to work. She has to leave early. She has to leave early. She has a responsibility to leave early. She has to. So as I said, when she or he or it is the subject, we conjugate the verb. We change the verb from have to has. She has to leave early. These show a responsibility of some kind. So many learners ask, like, can I use must here? I must go to work. She must leave early. It's not grammatically incorrect to say must. I must go to work. But because we use must for official rules and for like strong personal advice, it sounds kind of strange to use must here. Like, I have to go to work. That's an everyday, regular responsibility. When we make like a sentence like, I must go to work, it sounds like there's a very like strong reason, or there's a very official reason, I must go. So you might hear that in movies, like in epic, big scale, like fantasy stories. There's someone fighting a war, for example, or there's someone with a really big responsibility. They might say, I must go. In those cases, and when they're using like an old style of English, fine. But in everyday English, using I must before some of like your responsibilities sounds pretty strange, so I don't recommend it in most cases. If you want to sound funny, you can say something like, I must go to work. But in most cases, I would not recommend it. I have to go to work sounds much more natural. Or she must go, or she must leave early. It sounds way too formal. So please use has to or have to talk about your everyday responsibilities. Now, let's look at negatives. Negatives. So again, don't have to is like the I subject version. I don't have to, we don't have to, they don't have to. If your subject is he, she, or it, it becomes doesn't have to. He doesn't have to, she doesn't have to. So examples, he doesn't have to come. He doesn't have to come. This means he has no responsibility to come. It's okay. He doesn't have to come. No responsibility. He can, but he doesn't have to. That's what this communicates. He doesn't have to come. Same thing here. We don't have to leave yet. So yet shows it's okay now. We don't have to leave yet. Maybe later. We don't have to leave yet. Again, we can, but we don't have to. There's no responsibility there. So an important point about the negative with have to or need to is that when you make a negative with this pattern, make sure you're talking about a common or a regular responsibility. We use these patterns, we use this have to, this negative have to pattern, for things that we can reasonably be expected to have a responsibility to do. So an example I have heard from students, from learners, is something like this. I don't have to drink alcohol at work. I don't have to drink alcohol at work. So for grammar, this sentence is correct. The sentence is grammatically perfect. There's no communication problem. It's a great sentence. But this sounds strange because for most people, drinking alcohol at work is not a regular responsibility. I mean, unless you're like a bartender or you're someone who works with alcohol, like a wine sommelier, whatever. But for most people, in this example, drinking alcohol at work is not a regular responsibility. So it sounds a little strange to say, I don't have to drink alcohol at work. We often regularly use have to in the negative, I don't have to talk about our everyday responsibilities. So like, I don't have to get up early on the weekends. It means I have no responsibility to do that on the weekends. Or if you have a holiday, I don't have to go to work today. That's a much more common way of using don't have to. So please keep this point in mind. Make sure you're expressing a regular, like a reasonable expectation when you use the negative form here. Okay, so with that in mind, let's continue to the last point for this lesson. The last point is about should. In the negative, it's should not, and we reduce should not to shouldn't. Should, should not, and shouldn't. We use should and should not for general advice. General advice. This means everyday, just regular life advice. So compare this to must and must not, which we use for very strong personal advice. In most cases, in everyday life, we use should to talk about general advice, a suggestion, a recommendation. We use should to talk about that. We do not use must to talk about that, unless for some reason it's very, very strong. Examples. You should go home. You should go home. Maybe you look sick. You should go home. Or he should take a day off. He should take a day off. Maybe he looks stressed. So using must in these cases would sound strange because these are kind of everyday small suggestions like you must go home. That sounds very serious. Or he must take a day off. Again, sounds very serious. Why? Did something happen? So use should in these cases. Also, using have to in these cases kind of sounds a little strange too. If I use have to here, you have to go home. You have to go home. It's like, why? Do I have a responsibility to go home? It's kind of strange. Same thing here. He has to take a day off. Why? Like maybe there's some company rule. He has to take a day off. I don't know. But be careful. Make sure if you're giving just advice, your opinion, just use should. Of course, there are some cases where you can use have to in place of should to make a stronger recommendation. This is useful when you're giving like a restaurant recommendation. And it sounds like this. You have to try this restaurant. So that sounds more like excited than you should. You should try this restaurant, and you have to try this restaurant. Have to sounds stronger because it's like you're saying you have a responsibility to try this restaurant. You have to try this restaurant, or you have to try this recipe. It sounds a little stronger than you should. So you can use it in that way. But if you're giving advice, like based on something you can see, or if you're trying to give someone like career advice maybe, be careful with your use of should and have to. So have to shows like you're putting responsibility on that person. So should is more like general advice. Okay, let's look then at using shouldn't. So as I said, should not reduces to shouldn't. We shouldn't talk so loudly. We shouldn't talk so loudly. So in this case, we shouldn't. That's like advice for our group. Maybe we're talking very loudly and one person says, oh no, we shouldn't talk so loudly. So that's giving advice to the group. We should talk more quietly. So we shouldn't talk so loudly. Another one. She shouldn't worry so much. She shouldn't worry so much. So it's general advice. Don't worry so much is another way to say that. She shouldn't worry so much. So again, using something like must not sounds way too serious here. Like, we must not talk so loudly. It's for strong personal advice, so using must here sounds very strange. Same thing here. She must not worry so much. Again, very strange because this is a very strong sounding expression. She must not worry so much. Similarly, using have to here, we don't have to talk so loudly. That expresses lack of responsibility. We don't have to talk so loudly, but we can, is kind of the idea there. So this doesn't sound natural. Same here. She doesn't have to worry so much. This could be used, perhaps, she doesn't have to worry so much. Like, you could say in, for example, a work situation, you have a colleague, a coworker, and she worries a lot. And you want to express to your manager or to your team member, she doesn't have to worry so much. I can do it. Like, in that case, maybe it's natural. But if you're giving general advice, shouldn't sounds much better. So keep this in mind, should and should not for your general everyday advice for recommendations, have to and don't have to for your responsibilities, must and must not for official rules, and for very strong personal advice. So I hope that this introduction to these three expressions helps you understand the differences and the different feelings and situations in which we use these. So if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to practice making some sentences with these, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. Of course, if you liked this lesson, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye. Hi everybody, my name is Alicia. In this lesson, I'm going to talk about how to describe large amounts in English. Let's get started. Okay, for this lesson, there are a couple of points that I want to remind everyone about. First is the difference between countable and uncountable nouns. In this lesson, most of the expressions I'm going to talk about can be used for either countable or uncountable nouns, but some of the expressions we'll need to be careful about. So I've marked those with a star. I'll come to these near the end of the lesson, but if you want to know more about countable and uncountable nouns, please take a look at the videos we have on the English Class 101 channel. Okay, with that in mind, let's get started. First, I want to talk about these very, very commonly used expressions, a lot of and lots of. A lot of and lots of, they have the same meaning. They communicate the same idea. You can choose whichever one you prefer. We can use a lot of and lots of with countable and uncountable nouns. Remember, countable nouns take an S to make the plural form. Uncountable nouns are not used in this way to create the plural form. For example, uncountable nouns are words like money, air, time, beer, wine. We can't count these individually. We use counter words for those. So, we can use a lot of and lots of with both countable and uncountable nouns. For example, she won a lot of money in Las Vegas. Money is an uncountable noun. I've used it with a lot of here. You can use this with with a countable noun too. You have lots of friends. You have lots of friends. So reminder, when you are using a countable noun, you need to use the plural form of the noun. In this case, friends. You have lots of friends. Don't forget that S. I could swap these if I wanted to. She won lots of money in Las Vegas is fine. Or you have a lot of friends, also fine. These mean exactly the same thing. You can choose which you prefer. There's no difference in nuance, no difference in meaning, just whichever you prefer. They mean the same thing. Let's look at then the next pair. A ton of and tons of. Again, just like a lot of and lots of, these mean the same thing. The difference between these is the level. So if we imagine on a scale, a lot of is maybe here, tons of is here. It's a lot more. It's a lot more. So tons of or a ton of is a lot more than lots of or a lot of. So on a scale, tons of is here, a lot of or lots of is down here. So this is for when we want to express a much higher amount of something. So if you need a hint, you can use ton. Ton is a measurement, a very large measurement. So remember that ton refers to very, very big, heavy things. Some examples. We have a ton of work to do. We have a ton of work to do. Work is an uncountable noun, no S. We have a ton of work to do. Or they have tons of pets. They have tons of pets. Pets is a countable noun. We need to use the plural form pets here. Again, I could swap these if I wanted to. We have tons of work to do is okay. And they have a ton of pets is also okay. So again, this pair and this pair follow the same rule. You can choose whichever one you prefer. Okay, let's continue on to this next group. There are actually 3 here because I feel that these expressions are all about the same level. So we have a lot of, a ton of, or tons of, and then a bunch of, or bunches of, or plenty of. For some people, it might come, this one might come between tons of and a lot of. For some people, it might be a little bit further down. It's kind of, you have to feel for yourself what this means. I like to imagine this expression, bunches of or a bunch of, like a bunch of flowers. We use the expression a bunch of flowers to talk about a bouquet of flowers, like that group of flowers we give as a present. So we can imagine there are lots of flowers inside a bunch. So in my mind, I imagine like a bunch of, that's sort of the image I have in terms of quantity, like how many flowers are in a bunch of flowers. That might be helpful for you. Plenty of sounds like a lot of something, and it's like there's a relaxed feeling about that. So let's look at some example sentences that use these. First, bunches of money were stolen from the store. Bunches of money were stolen from the store. So money is my uncountable noun. I've used bunches here. To compare this with a countable noun, a bunch of my coworkers went out for a drink. A bunch of my coworkers went out for a drink. So this means a lot of people, or maybe a group of people that had many people in it, went out for a drink. So the idea here is that there's some kind of group, I feel. That's kind of the image of a bunch. So plenty also has this feeling of a lot of something, yes, but there's also kind of this relaxed, casual feel. We tend to use bunch and bunches when there's a little bit of a casual feel too. You will often hear plenty of in this expression. We have plenty of time. We have plenty of time. You might hear lots of time too. We have lots of time. Plenty of time sounds like, don't worry, it's nothing to worry about. We have a lot of time to do this thing we need to do. There's plenty of time. That's often the voice that's used. So it has this idea behind it of like relaxation or being able to do something at an easy pace. We have plenty of time. So we do not have this form for plenty of. But again, we can use this with countable or uncountable nouns. Okay. Okay, so let's move along then to the next part. As I said, this next part will include some differences, some important differences between countable and uncountable nouns. The difference is in these words here, actually. First, I have this pair, a large amount of and a large number of something. So when should we use these? This word, amount, we use this when we're talking about uncountable nouns, a large amount of uncountable noun. We use number for countable nouns, a large number of countable nouns. So this is the difference between these two. Let's take a look at some examples. First, a large amount of the population got sick. A large amount of the population got sick. So here we're talking about a population. We're not talking about like one person. We're talking about the whole population of a city. So an entire group of people. So we use amount to do that. A large amount of the population got sick. We can compare this to a large number of students improved. A large number of students improved. So here I've used number because students is my countable noun in the plural form. A large number of students improved. So please keep this difference in mind. We'll see the same thing down here. A huge amount of or a huge number of follows this same pattern. The difference here is in this word, huge versus large. So large means big. So we don't say big, really, in this case. We use large, and it tends to sound a little more formal. These sound a bit more formal than these do. These expressions are fairly casual. Here, however, huge means very, 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 very big. So for like an animal, it would be an elephant is very big. That's a huge animal. Maybe a large animal would be a horse, for example. A huge animal is an elephant. So that's the difference in size here. So when you're thinking about concepts, you can kind of use that as like the guideline for your vocabulary decision making. So we follow the same uncountable, countable rule here. A huge amount of uncountable nouns and a huge number of countable nouns. So there was a huge amount of interest in our project. So interest is uncountable. We don't say one interest, two interest. There was a huge amount of interest, uncountable noun, in our project. On the other hand, a huge number of illnesses are treatable illnesses. So illness means a sickness, a type of disease. A huge number of illnesses are treatable. So here the plural form illnesses shows it's the plural of the countable noun illness. Illness. A huge number of illnesses are treatable, able to be treated or cured. Finally then is this word several. Several. This is special because several is used only for countable nouns. Only for countable nouns. We do not use several with uncountable nouns. So several is more than just 2 or 3 or 4. I think a good hint is here. Several sounds like 7, but it doesn't mean 7. It means like a good number of ideas in this case, or a good number of something. So it's not a small amount, but it's not quite a lot either. It's kind of near the middle, the bottom middle of a scale. So in this case, she has several ideas. Again, countable noun, so we need to use the plural form here. She has several ideas. So this is only for countable nouns. Please be careful with that. Okay, so this is an introduction to some common expressions we use to talk about large amounts. So I hope that this was helpful for you. Again, if you want to know more about countable and uncountable nouns, please search the English Class 101 channel for some information, for some videos about those topics. Of course, if you have any questions or comments, or if you want to practice making sentences with any of these points, please feel free to do so in the comment section of this video. If you enjoyed this lesson, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel if you haven't already, and check us out at EnglishClass101.com for some other things that can help you with your English studies. Thanks very much for watching this lesson, and I will see you again soon. Bye-bye. Okay, the first tip is learn words through phrases. So learn words through phrases. What does this mean? This means instead of studying one vocabulary word at a time and having that be your only way to study vocabulary, it means study entire phrases, study a group of words at a time. So for example, don't study like morning only. Study good morning or how was your morning? Those kinds of expressions. So you're not just studying one word at a time and thinking about how you need to link that word to other words. Instead, set yourself up to know how to put those words together by studying a few phrases at a time. Okay, the next tip is to watch your favorite video with subtitles. So when you do this, choose a video or maybe a movie that you like and turn on the English subtitles for that movie. So while it might be difficult to catch everything that's happening in each scene, you can at least check the subtitles. You can check the information as it's being said. So if you can't catch everything by listening, you can at least read the words on the screen and understand these as kind of units or as sentences that you can study. So again, you're not looking just at one word or maybe even two words together, but you're studying things as a phrase or as a question or as a sentence. Okay, let's go to the next tip. The next tip is to think in the language you want to learn. Think in the language you want to learn. This is a really, really tough one, especially when you're starting out, and it will take time. So don't worry if you can't do this right away. But this means as you go about your day, as you wake up and eat food, go to school, go to work, whatever, try to think, spend some time thinking in English. Think in the language you're studying. So this can be really, really boring stuff, like thinking about what you're doing. How could I express that in English? So think about those sorts of everyday actions and activities and try to express them in English. You can do this out loud to work on improving your speaking skills. Okay, let's go to the next tip. Okay, the next tip is to use available learning applications. Use available learning applications. So that means if you have a favorite application, an app that you like to use to study, make sure you use that. So maybe you've downloaded our application, for example, thank you. You can use that to work on your speaking. You can do that by reading dialogues, by trying to shadow conversations that you hear. You can also just use your phone's recording function and record yourself and then listen to it later. That might sound like a really simple tip, but it can help you a lot. So we sound very different when we're talking, and we often don't hear that unless we kind of step outside our body a bit and listen to ourselves from outside. And recording your voice is a really, really good way to do that. So make sure you check out the apps and the functions that you have on your phone or your computer to do that. The next tip is to expand your vocabulary by reading. Expand your vocabulary by reading. So a common complaint from learners is they say, I don't feel like I have the vocabulary I need to express myself. I know lots of basic words, but I don't feel like I can say the things I want to say when the time comes in a conversation. So one way to do this is to work on building your vocabulary. Reading is a really great way to do that. So choose things to read that you have a connection to. They're related to your hobbies, to your work, to your studies, whatever. Choose things that are relevant, so like they're connected to your life, and read those things and find the key vocabulary words that people use within your daily life activities and try to remember those. Try to make those the vocabulary words that you study and practice so that you're able to use them when you speak in conversations. The next tip is to talk to yourself. Talk to yourself. Like talking to yourself sounds a little bit crazy, sure, but this is a great way to practice speaking when there's nobody around. You can just practice making the sounds that you're working on. You can practice saying sentences and questions. You can practice talking about your day. So for those of you that maybe don't have somebody to practice with, this can be an excellent tip. And again, as you talk to yourself, you can also record yourself and listen back. And I know a lot of people say, I hate the sound of my own voice. I hate the sound of my own voice. It's only you. You're the only person who is going to listen to that recording, and it's to help you study. And it helps a lot, actually. This is something that I do when I need to improve my own speaking skills. So I highly recommend this tip if you want to work on speaking and improving your speaking. So talk to yourself. Sounds weird, but it helps. Okay, next tip is to listen to recordings and repeat. Listen to recordings and repeat. Another word for this is shadowing. So that means basically you listen to a lesson, for example, like if you want to listen to this video or you want to listen to one of our lessons, you can listen to it and then quickly try to say the same thing the speaker is saying right after them. So if you're using this video, for example, it just means you try to repeat the same things I say now in just a moment. So shadowing like this, the point of shadowing like this is to try to match the intonation and the rhythms of the speaker in addition to the pronunciation. So this can be helpful if you're having trouble like linking words together on your own, if you're having trouble building your own sentences. By shadowing after a native speaker, you can kind of get a better feel sometimes for the rhythm of how a language is supposed to sound and how you can produce that language yourself. The next tip is to prepare for daily routine situations. Prepare for daily routine situations. So that means like think about your day and think about the things you need to say in your day and how you would express those things in English. So for example, when you greet your coworkers or you greet your fellow like classmates or whatever, how do you greet them? How would you greet them in English? Prepare something for that. Or when you want to ask about dinner, how would you ask for dinner in English? So think about these things you know you're going to do in your day and just prepare them ahead of time. It will save you time and it will also make the other person feel more comfortable, right? Because they'll be ready for a natural question. The next tip is to try to practice your speaking with a native speaker. Try to practice your speaking with a native speaker. This is challenging for many people I know because they don't have a native speaker in their community or they don't have a native speaker to connect with online. It might take some time to find that person, but this is of course a hugely important thing to do. So a native speaker does not mean a teacher. So just because a person is a native speaker does not mean that they are a teacher. In fact, most native speakers probably don't know all of the rules of grammar and they're not prepared to answer all of your questions, which is fine. But a native speaker does know what feels and sounds natural. So they can help you to make more natural choices with your speaking. They can also help you to address any questions that you might have about pronunciation or maybe like vocabulary choices within a specific region. So it's important to remember that not every native speaker is a perfect speaker, but they can help you a lot in helping you sound more natural. The next tip is know your audience. Know your audience. So what does this mean? To know your audience means to think about the person to whom you are speaking. So that means don't just think about you. Think about the other person. Like when you're talking to someone else, what are they looking for in the conversation? Are they talking to you to get information? Are you study partners? Are you coworkers? Are you classmates? What are their needs? So how do you meet their needs? How do you match their manner of speaking? So please try to remember to think about the other person in the conversation as well. The next tip is to ask for feedback and reflect on it. Ask for feedback and reflect on it. So try to think of someone in your community that you can ask for feedback about your speaking skills. If you don't have a teacher, you can check out the online options that we offer, of course, or maybe you have an online exchange buddy that you can practice with, but make sure to ask for feedback. And when they give you feedback, don't take it as criticism. So if someone says, for example, oh, your pronunciation of this sound needs some work, don't feel offended. Like that feedback is intended to help you improve. So when you receive feedback like that, think about how you can focus your energy on improving those points. So that means please reflect on that feedback and think about what you can do to integrate it. So to integrate it means how do you put that feedback into your mind and put your energies towards improving that point. All right, the next tip is to avoid reading directly and try to use an outline. Avoid reading directly and try to use an outline. So this tip is specifically if you need to give a presentation or if you need to like share some information like a report in a classroom. So instead of just printing a piece of paper and reading directly from the piece of paper like this, in a classroom setting or if you're giving a speech or a presentation, try to print just an outline of your main points and then practice talking about those things before your speaking presentation, before whatever presentation you need to do. This will help you sound a lot more natural. It's really unnatural and it's not very much fun and it's not very interesting to watch someone just read a report in front of a classroom or to read a report in a business presentation. So instead of doing that, try to refer to an outline throughout your presentation. So your outline might be something like introduction, main points I want to talk about, and then you move on to the detailed points you want to talk about. And just write a few words so that you can remember the things that you want to make sure you share with your audience. So again, this goes back to that point about knowing your audience in our earlier tip. Think about their perspective too. The next tip is shadow language CDs and then repeat what you heard. Shadow language CDs and repeat what you heard. So very, very similar to the earlier tip about repeating quickly after a native speaker, like when you're watching this kind of video. If you're not comfortable using a movie or using a video like this one, you can try using language learning audio. So maybe you have CDs or maybe you have podcasts or other lesson content that is at a slower pace and that is easier for you to understand. You can practice shadowing with these things too. You don't have to practice with a native speaker that's talking at fast pace. You can also use these slower practice CDs and practice audio files to do your shadowing exercises. So don't feel like you have to speak super, super quickly to practice your speaking efficiently. Practicing slowly is also okay. Keep practicing regularly, otherwise your hard work will be wasted. Keep practicing regularly, otherwise your hard work will be wasted. So this one I think is pretty clear, but it's important for all aspects, all parts of learning a language. Keep practicing regularly. So that means practice your speaking a little bit every day. If you just try to speak for like an hour 1 week, it's way too much. So try to practice speaking like 1 minute today and then 1 minute and 10 seconds tomorrow. So keep building, keep working on things every single day, and you'll see much better results in the long term. All right, let's go to our last tip. The last tip is don't give up and stay positive. Don't give up and stay positive. So that means please be kind to yourself. So if you make a mistake in a conversation, it's not the end of the world. If you forget a word or if you say something funny, that's fine. It's all part of the learning process. Please don't worry about those sorts of things. You'll get over them and you'll learn how to improve. So make sure that you always continue moving forward and you keep a positive attitude. 10 pairs of commonly confused words. So let's go. Claim, complain. The first pair is claim and complain. First, let's talk about the word claim. To claim is like to accuse someone of something. To complain is to explain a problem in a negative manner. So, example sentences. He claimed he was harassed by the police. She complained about the food. Affect, effect. Next pair is affect and effect. So this is a pair that even native speakers make mistakes with. There are some deeper meanings to effect with an E when used as a verb. However, when used with an A, affect, although the pronunciation is the same, affect, when used with an A, it means a verb. It means to cause something to happen. Effect is a result. You can think of it as the outcome, the result of something. So, in sentences, my job change is going to affect my salary. The weather has a big effect on my mood. Accept, accept. The next pair is accept and accept. So they have the same pronunciation. You can hear it, accept, accept. But the spelling is different. Accept, A-C-C-E-P-T and E-X-C-E-P-T. E-X-C-E-P-T, yes. So accept and accept. To accept as a verb means to allow something or to permit something. Accept, however, is a word we use to mean excluding something else. So please accept my apologies. So please allow me to apologize. He gave me everything except his wallet. So he gave me all of his things, but not his wallet. So everything but his wallet, everything except his wallet. So same pronunciation, different spelling. Lead, led, led. The next pair is actually 3 words that I want to talk about. I say 3 because the first word can be pronounced in 2 different ways. There's led, and then there's lead, and then led. So let's start with lead and led, L-E-A-D. We can read them, so we can read the word L-E-A-D in 2 different ways, the word that's spelled like that. First, let's talk about the noun. The noun form is pronounced led, led. So the noun form, so this lead means it's like a type of soft metal. If you've ever used a pencil, that's the material that the pencil is made from. That's the writing material. That's called lead, a lead pencil. However, the same spelling is used for the present tense of the verb lead, as in like the word leader, for example. So leader has that word. We can also use it as a verb to lead something, like to lead a group, to lead a party, to lead an expedition into the mountains. I don't know. So lead as a verb in the present tense and led as a material have the same spelling. You need to pay attention to the sentence that you're reading and the grammar of the sentence to understand which is the true meaning in that sentence. Now, though, let's talk about L-E-D, led. This is the past tense of the verb lead. So please be careful. Lead, L-E-A-D, the verb, the past tense of that verb is led, L-E-D. L-E-D, led, has the same pronunciation as the noun form of L-E-A-D. Lead as a pencil material and led, past tense of the verb lead. It's very confusing, I'm very sorry, but that's just the way it is. So please be careful with led, lead, and led. Okay, example sentences now. My pencil is made from lead. He wants to lead the presentation. She led me to the restaurant. Scary, scared. Okay. All right, next pair. Actually, this is a very common issue that I want to talk about, but I'm going to explain it with 2 common words, scary and scared. So both of these refer to fear. Scary is a word that we use to describe something outside us. A ghost is scary, a movie is scary, a monster is scary. My next door neighbor's cooking is scary. I don't know. Something that is scary, something that causes fear outside of you is scary, with a Y at the end, scary. Scared, however, refers to a person's emotions. He is scared. She is scared. The dog looks scared. Scared is referring to an emotion. Scary refers to something's quality, its characteristics. So if you're trying to remember like, which should I use, scary or scared? Go with the ED one. That ED is always going to refer to an emotion. So you'll see similar patterns with other words. So for example, like I don't know, like a word like shocking and shocked. So one of these 2 words ends in ED, shocked, in that case. So shocked should apply to you, your emotions. So if you're ever in that situation, which do I use? There's the scary, scared. Go with the ED one. So, example sentences. That movie was really scary. He looks really scared. Challenge, try. The next pair is challenge and try. Challenge and try. So we can use challenge both as a noun and as a verb. When we use challenge as a noun, we'll say it in a sentence like, I'm interested in a challenge this year, for example. Something that is difficult but not impossible to do. The trouble with these 2 words comes when people try to use the word challenge to mean attempt. We don't have this meaning for challenge in English. So if you say like, I want to challenge this test, it sounds odd. We have a verb meaning of challenge, which means like to it sounds like to initiate a fight with someone, like he challenged his boss. It sounds like a very aggressive situation, to challenge someone or to challenge a verdict in a court case, for example. It means like to make an appeal for something or to try to change the opinion of someone else, to challenge as a verb. To try, on the other hand, means to make an attempt. So it doesn't have the nuance really of a challenge necessarily. It might be a challenging task, it might be a challenging thing to attempt, but it doesn't necessarily mean challenge. The nuance of challenge isn't really always included in the word try. Try just means attempt. So let's look at some example sentences. This recipe is going to be a challenge. As a verb, challenge yourself. And then try, I'm excited to try making this cake. Every day, every day. Okay, the next pair of words is every day and every day. So the difference here is there's a word with no space, every day, and then there's two words with a space, every day. There is a difference between these two words. Every day with no space is used, this is an adjective, so it means something that is common, something that is a regular behavior or something that is kind of expected. An everyday behavior, an everyday activity, for example. Every day refers to something that happens regularly, but it is not an adjective. It's like we use it as an introduction to a phrase. Every day I brush my teeth. Every day I take a shower. Every day he goes to work. However, when we use every day, we use it as an adjective. So for example, going to work is an everyday activity. Taking a shower is an everyday activity. We can use these two words to describe the same things, to describe similar activities and similar actions. However, grammatically, they have different functions. So please be careful. Every day, adjective. Every day refers to a series of activities each day. All right. Example sentences. I study every day. It's an everyday task for me. Then, than. Next is a common spelling error, I think even for native speakers. It's then and than. T-H-E-N and T-H-A-N. Then is like a connecting word. We say first, next, then, after that, for example. Or then, meaning like it leads to or it connects to another idea in a sequence. Than, however, is used typically to make comparisons, like my hair is longer than her hair, for example, or my rent is cheaper than Donald Trump's. I don't know. I don't know. Why was that the first? I don't know. But than is used to make comparisons. Then is used to make connections. So please try to keep these two in mind. That vowel does make a difference. That sounds very similar, I know, but then, than, then, and than. Example sentences. I took a shower, then went to bed. He has more time than me. Borrow, lend. The next pair is borrow and lend. Borrow and lend are so confusing, I know, and actually I mix up these words in like other languages when I study them too. I don't know why they're so difficult to remember. I feel your pain. Okay, but let's review. So to borrow something from someone, when you yourself use the word borrow, it means you want to receive something. So let me borrow your book. I want to borrow your car. Can I borrow your dog? I don't know what I'm going to do if I borrow someone's dog. But to borrow something means you're going to receive something. When you make a request, can I borrow blah, blah, blah? Or my friend let me borrow his DVD player. I don't know. To borrow means to receive that thing. Lend, on the other hand, means to provide something, to give someone something. So the confusion, I think, comes in with an expression like, will you lend me your car? Because the speaker is asking the other person to take the action of giving something. But we use the word lend, like lend me your car. In American English, I think I tend to say, can I borrow? I'll put myself as the subject there. Can I borrow your pen, for example? Is it okay if I borrow your pen? I typically don't use the expression, lend me your pen. That's just not a word that I tend to use. However, I think it can cause confusion because I'm using the word lend. However, I want to receive that thing. So I'm using the command form for the other person. I'm telling them, lend me something. So I think that's where the confusion comes in. So if you use an expression, depending on the kind of English you'd like to use, of course, you can use borrow, you can use lend. Either of these patterns are fine. But just keep in mind, if you want to borrow something, you should say, can I borrow? If you want to use the verb lend, you should say, lend me. You can say, will you lend me something? But just keep in mind who the subject of the sentence is. Like, will you lend me this thing? Will you lend me your pen is correct. And can I borrow your pen is correct. Keep in mind who the subject of the sentence is. So if the other person is giving you a thing, you can use like, I want to, if I'm the subject, I want to borrow that thing. If the other person is the subject, it's lend me that thing. So quite confusing, I think. But I think in this case, this could be one of those times where it's better to try to think of it as a set phrase and focus less on the individual words. So maybe studying them as set questions, studying them as a pattern instead of focusing a lot on, is it lend or borrow? I think trying to repeat as a question or as a statement could be more useful if this is difficult for you. So let's look at some more example sentences. I borrowed a lot of money from the bank. Hey, can you lend me your car for the afternoon? Loose, lose. The last one is another spelling problem and pronunciation problem, I suppose. The last pair is loose and lose. Loose and lose. You can hear maybe the difference in vowel sound. Loose and lose. So loose is an adjective. So loose means something that is not, it's the opposite of tight. So if your bag comes together, you pull a string, your bag becomes tight. The opening in the bag becomes tight. If you relax the string, the bag becomes loose, perhaps, and you can put items inside it. So loose is an adjective, which kind of means like relaxed or open. So the opposite of tight. Lose, however, is a verb. So to lose something, like I don't want to lose my wallet, or oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my job. Not true. But to lose something means it disappears, it goes away. So loose and lose have very different meanings. However, there's one O that is different there. Example sentences. Okay. I lost a lot of weight and now my pants are loose. Be careful not to lose your keys. Hey everyone, welcome to the Monthly Review, the monthly show on language learning, where you discover new learning strategies, motivational tips, study tools, and resources. By the way, all the lessons and bonuses you're about to see can be downloaded for free on our website. So click the link in the description right now to sign up for your free lifetime account. Okay, today's topic is the first step in your language learning journey that will guarantee your success. If you have trouble sticking with your language learning goals, it's probably because you're skipping one specific step. It's the step you need to take before you even start any learning. And doing it will help you stick with the language, not get overwhelmed, and reach your language goals. So today you'll learn 1. What solo language learners need to succeed, and 2. How to do self-assessment and set yourself up for success. But first, listen up. Here are this month's new lessons and resources. Be sure to download these now before we take them down in a few days. First, the Giving Directions Conversation Cheat Sheet. Do you know how to tell a taxi driver where to go in your target language? You'll be able to. With this PDF cheat sheet, you'll learn must-know words and phrases for giving directions. Second, the Most Common Verbs PDF ebook. You'll learn over 90 common verbs with this bonus PDF picture ebook. Download and review on any device. Third, how to talk about what you do in your free time. Learn how to say video games, fishing, and much more. You'll pick up over 25 words for leisure activities with this vocab bonus. Fourth, how to learn from home, learning strategies. Want to learn the language from the comfort of your home? This 1-minute lesson will give you all the best tactics for learning languages. Fifth, the top 35 adjectives for personalities. Can you describe your personality? This next bonus teaches you the 35 must-know adjectives for personalities, so you can talk about yourself in your target language. To get your free resources, click the link in the description below right now. They're yours to keep forever. Okay, let's jump into today's topic. the first step in your language learning journey that will guarantee your success. Here's a question for you. When you want to learn a language, how do you usually get started with that goal? You might say the inspiration comes first, and that motivates you to start. Then you get a textbook or an app and go from there, right? That's a pretty standard answer, but how does that tend to work out? Most people end up falling off a week or a month later. Why do you think that happens? Leave a comment with why you think people tend to lose inspiration quickly. More often than not, it happens because you pick a goal, a learning routine, or a resource that overwhelms you and just isn't right for you. Here's a typical example. Let's say you work an 8-hour day and you want to try to start learning. Most people would try to squeeze in learning for 1 or 2 hours at night, or you could try and wake up an hour early. And usually that doesn't work out because you're trying to do things that you're not used to. Wake up earlier and study earlier. It doesn't fit your current lifestyle. So what should you do differently? Well, let's take an example from language schools. Before you start learning, language schools force you to take an assessment test on the first day. Why? So that they make sure the language lessons fit your level and put you in the proper class. The goal of an assessment test is to find out where you are and meet you there. That's something most solo learners don't do. And the problem is, if you're a solo learner, no one assesses you. And you yourself don't know what routine works best for you, how much time you can set aside, and how much studying you can comfortably do. We all imagine we can do an hour a day, but realistically speaking, it'll be a lot less than that. So that's where self-assessment comes in. Before you start learning a language, or do any goal for that matter, it's important to know where you are in life, what your daily schedule is like, when you're busy and when you're free. So you can set your expectations, know how much time you can put in, and so you can start learning at a pace that works for you. Now, how do you actually assess yourself? There are 3 assessments you can do. 1, a life assessment. 2, a routine assessment. And 3, language assessment. Language assessment will only be helpful if you already have some experience. If you're brand new, you won't need this. First, life assessment. Here, the goal is to see how the language will fit into your life and how you generally deal with goals. As in, if you succeeded with a goal before, what helped you succeed? You could take that and apply it here. If you failed before, find out why so you can avoid it this time. So you'll need to answer the following questions. Why are you learning this language? How will it help your life? What current connections do you have to this language? For example, listening to music, watching TV, you have a relative, you have neighbors or friends that speak it. What have you been doing so far to learn? Have you learned languages before? Have you failed any goals before? How or why? Have you succeeded with any goals before? How or why? Write these questions out and answer them. Next, the routine assessment. Write out your daily routine for a whole week. For example, wake up at 7 a.m., breakfast at 8 a.m., commute to work at 8:30 a.m., arrive at work at 9:30 a.m., lunch at 1 p.m., and so on. Do this for every day of the week. The goal here is to see what your daily routine is like, so you know when you're free, when you're busy, and where you can fit in language learning. That way, if you're super busy on Mondays and 5 minutes is all you can do, then that's good enough. You won't feel bad about doing only 5 minutes. If you see that you spend 30 minutes on commuting, add language learning on top of that existing routine. If you take walks or go for a jog, play an audio lesson there. Or even if you're cooking at a certain time, play an audio lesson in the background. Remember, look for an existing routine that you already stick with, like commuting, and where you can multitask. Don't try to create new routines. For example, waking up at 7 a.m. to learn will set you up for failure. If you usually wake up at 8 a.m., waking up at 7 a.m. will be even harder. And then, actually trying to learn a language at 7 a.m. makes it even harder. This is where new learners start having trouble. You're trying to do 2 things at once, trying to learn the language and trying to stick to a new routine. 1 is hard enough. Trying to do 2 can overwhelm you. So piggyback off of your existing routines first, so you can build momentum. And finally, there's language assessment. If you're an absolute beginner, you won't need much of an assessment. Just start with our absolute beginner recommended learning pathway. But if you have experience and want to assess yourself, there are 2 things you can do. First, if you're a Premium Plus user, then you're asked to do an assessment test when you join, but you can always request it again from your teacher. And second, if you're a Premium user, check our recommended pathways. We assign these pathways, level 1 to level 5, based on your learning level, from absolute beginner to advanced. At the start of each pathway, there's a diagnostic test. You can take that to assess yourself. So thank you for watching this episode of Monthly Review. Next time, we'll talk about when routines grow stale, how to learn more language with a new routine. If you enjoyed these tips, hit the like button, share the video with anyone who's trying to learn a language, and subscribe to our channel. We release new videos every week. And if you're ready to finally learn language the fast, fun, and easy way and start speaking from your very first lesson, get our complete learning program. Sign up for your free lifetime account right now. Click the link in the description. See you next time. Bye! What are some surefire ways to stay motivated when you're learning a language? In this video, we're going to talk about 10 surefire ways to stay motivated and stay on track. All right, we asked our Premium and Premium Plus members for their tested techniques. You'll find out what worked for them. Number 1, you must see your progress. In other words, you have to see it to believe it. There's nothing better than seeing your results firsthand. It's like seeing muscles in the mirror after working out. How do you do this with language? In order to see it, you have to start measuring it first. And you can do that with the dashboard on our website. With the dashboard, you can see how many lessons and how much of the language you've mastered so far. So review the progress you've made with the dashboard on the site. Number 2, use the Daily Dose of Language app. With this, you get free daily mini lessons, but that's not all. This app keeps you on track because it actually sends you daily reminders. If you need that extra push or reminder, this app does it for you. And the Daily Dose lessons are quick and easy. They take just 1 minute of your time. Number 3, learn with somebody better than you. A tutor, a friend, and you can even learn with your own teacher with a Premium Plus subscription. Simply having someone better than you by your side is enough to help you improve and motivate you. It's like having a coach. Number 4, set a small, measurable goal. For example, finish 10 lessons in 1 week, or learn 20 words in a week. Most people give up because they have a vague goal, like I want to be fluent, that they don't know how to reach. But if you aim small and make it measurable, you'll have a much better chance of reaching it. Your goal is to learn 20 words, and you know 17 already. Because you know how close you are, you're more motivated to close the gap and reach your goal. Number 5, watch movies and shows in your target language. First of all, we recommend this because it's fun. But more importantly, when you understand what you hear, it's a clear sign of progress and you'll feel good about it. Number 6, listen to music in your target language. Music is enjoyable, and if you make it part of your routine, you're giving yourself a nice break in between lessons. But you're still immersing yourself in the language. So if you enjoy this routine, you're more likely to stay motivated. Number 7, do the lessons that you enjoy. Just like with music, if you enjoy our audio and video lessons, then stick with them. If you have any favorite lessons, remember you can always download them to your device and review them as much as you want. They're yours to keep. Number 8, understand that language learning is a marathon. Learning a new language is not a sprint. Most people think they can study for hours and suddenly get better. But when they realize that it takes time, this can hurt their motivation. So understand that it's a marathon. Remember that it's better to study for a few minutes every day than pulling a 5-hour cram session that will burn you out. Number 9, keep the big goal in mind. Imagine yourself being fluent. Small, measurable goals are definitely important. But when you just don't feel like learning, which is completely natural by the way, remember the big goal. Having the big picture in mind will remind you of what's important and put you back on track. Number 10, invest in the language. Make a commitment. Whether you buy a book or a subscription, enroll in a class, or join a study group, by investing and making a commitment, you're much more likely to go through with it. You've paid for it, so you value it more. You want to make sure you get your money's worth. Plus, other people expect you to show up. This can be extremely helpful when working towards your language goals. And that's it. There are so many ways to keep yourself motivated. Do you have a favorite way? Leave us a comment and let us know. So, to make sure you stay motivated in your studies, just check out our complete language learning program. Sign up for your free lifetime account by clicking on the link in the description. Get tons of resources to have you speaking in your target language. And if you enjoyed these tips, hit the like button, share the video with anyone who's trying to learn a new language, and subscribe to our channel. We release new videos every week. I'll see you next time. Bye! Want to speak and understand more of your target language? You'll need to know more words and phrases to really make new conversations and ultimately connections. In this video, you'll discover 6 ways to master new words and phrases fast. Number 1. Use our free vocabulary lists. Here's what makes this study tool so powerful. This is your free library of vocab and phrase lessons. You can learn words and phrases for current events like Halloween or New Year's. There are also many useful topics, like the top 10 ways to say hello, conversational phrases, and more. In other words, you learn phrases that you wouldn't normally find in textbooks. And if you want to learn extra fast, you can use the slideshow tool. Just tap on or click on View Slideshow, then sit back and review the words and phrases. Find the vocabulary lists in the vocabulary drop-down menu on the site. And yes, these vocab lists are free for all users. Number 2. Take the audio and video lessons. One of the best ways to learn new words is through conversations. You get to hear how the words are used. So in every lesson dialogue, you'll come across some words you don't know. But don't worry, because our teachers translate everything. So when you hear the conversation again at the end of the lesson, you'll know them all. Number 3. Learn with our 2,000 most common words list. Here's a question for you. How many words do you think you need for conversational fluency? 3,000? 5,000? Actually, language experts say you need only about 1,500 to reach conversational fluency. And with this study tool, the 2,000 most common words list, you get the words you need for conversational fluency right up front. That's what makes this study tool so powerful. It's all here for you. And they're broken down into simple categories, such as adjectives, nouns, verbs, food, drinks, numbers, and months. Now, 2,000 is quite a lot to learn. Do you have to learn it all? Well, you don't have to learn it all at once. You can go category by category. You can also start with the top 100 words, then move on to the top 200, 300, and so on until you get to 2,000. So if you're an absolute beginner, you can start with the top 100 words. Once you've mastered those, you can move on to the next category. You can also use other study tools to learn these words faster, right? Such as number 4, study with spaced repetition flashcards. Now, we're not talking about paper flashcards. We're talking about the smart flashcards that you can find in our premium study tools. Picture this. Think of these as a teacher inside of your computer who quizzes you and sorts the words for you. So words that you struggle with, you'll be quizzed on more and more, and words that you know, you'll see less and less. So they display the words as needed, so you never forget them. In every session, they'll refresh your memory on the words you learned last time and introduce new ones. That's exactly how our smart flashcards work. And because you get drilled on the words you struggle with, you have no choice but to master them and improve. You have no choice but to succeed. You can also study the words from your lessons and vocab lists with the very same flashcard tool. Number 5, create printable word lists with the word bank. The word bank is a study tool that lets you save words and phrases from lessons and vocab lists. Think of it as your extended brain. If you come across a new word that you want to review later, you can save it to the word bank. But the word bank also lets you print out your word lists. So click on the printer-friendly option inside Word Bank and print out your collection of words. You can use that sheet for writing practice. Number 6, use the words. After you learn a new word, using it right away is crucial to remembering it. So when you're done with a lesson or a vocab list, leave a comment. Make up a sample sentence and post it in the comment section. Write it down in a notebook, or shadow it, meaning listen to the audio pronunciation and say it out loud. You should do this because it's the actual practice that gets you to remember it. So say it, write it, listen to it again. Doing this will help lock the words into your memory. So if you want to take advantage of any of these tools for yourself, just check out our complete language learning program. Sign up for your free lifetime account by clicking on the link in the description. Get tons of resources to have you speaking in your target language. And if you enjoyed these tips, hit the like button, share the video with anyone who's trying to learn a new language, and subscribe to our channel. We release new videos every week. I'll see you next time. Bye! Are you studying a language but starting to lose motivation? In this video, we're going to talk about the halfway point and how to keep going with language learning. After 6 months to a year of studying a language, you might be feeling like you're losing a little bit of steam. Maybe you started out strong and now you're feeling a bit low. Maybe you aren't seeing the results you wanted, or you think your efforts aren't paying off. But the reason for that might not have anything to do with your studies. It might be more an issue about your reviewing and your goal setting. 1. Why you should review your past language goals. When you set goals, do you ever go back to review your progress? It can be a reminder of how far you've come and help you keep your motivation up. Let's say you started learning a language and you've been at it for a few months. In month 1, you're excited and motivated. In month 2, you're still going at it, but maybe the motivation is not as strong, and you want to make sure that you don't fall off, unfortunately, as most people do. So you work hard to keep at it. By month 3, you're kind of on autopilot and learning with whatever has been working for you. That sounds like a good place to be, cruising on autopilot. Well, it may seem like a good place to be, but the problem is by month 4, 5, or 6, if you've been coasting along for too long and haven't had any significant improvements, you may start wondering if you're actually learning or if you'll ever master the language. You might start losing motivation, and worse, you might even quit. If you're learning by yourself, it's hard, and if you're not tracking your progress, by month 4 or 5, you might realize that the textbook you've been using isn't helping you increase your fluency. You might think you're going nowhere. So the reason to review is to check your progress. Maybe you can speak none of your target language in month 1, but at the end of month 3, you can speak 3 minutes. So that's some progress. And if you're at 8 minutes now, for example, then you can definitely say that you've improved since the start. It's good for motivation, just knowing that you got a return on your time investment. So reviewing is good for progress and motivation. Also, it's natural to lose motivation with anything you're trying to learn or do. So it's something you need to keep up, something you need to keep in mind. What do you do when your motivation dips? You can stop, take some time to review and reflect. Is your motivation dipping? Are you studying less? Do you feel like you're not making progress? And if you say yes to these questions, then you can work on boosting your motivation to help you keep going. How do you boost your motivation? Well, do you remember anchor points? Anchor points are things that connect you or anchor you to your goal, such as a language class or a program. It could even be relatives or friends who speak the language, TV shows in that language you like, or an upcoming trip to the target country. All of these things, in one way or another, keep you anchored to your language learning goal. So if you're watching a TV show in your target language, then it's natural for you to want to understand it better, and your desire to learn goes up. If you're taking language classes where a teacher expects homework from you, that's another connection to the language. So you do the homework, you attend classes, you learn more. Ultimately, if you want to boost your motivation and keep going, you should get more anchor points. But how do you do that? Let's jump into the second part. 2. How to review your progress and maintain motivation. How do you review your progress? First, you always set small, measurable goals and always track results. The study resource you're using can be used for your review as well. It's easy to get demotivated and think that you have learned nothing. But if you're using a textbook, for example, you can set a number of pages, and that can be a really good motivator, something to reach for. Making sure you're getting through and then testing yourself on material is a little harder if you're not actually using your textbook, though. So make sure that you actually stick to the plan you set for yourself. Again, the tool you're using is not so important, but just make sure whatever you use, you measure it and track your progress. Reviewing is as simple as looking at your past goals and results. You can also do it the old school way and look through your notebooks, see how much you've written out. In fact, we have something called the Dean's Date with our Premium Plus plan, where our Premium Plus users send in all of the work they've completed with their teacher. The writings, the recordings, the assignments, and you can see it all, everything that you've done. Then you can see your actual results of your 3 months of work. Everything you've accomplished is in one place. Do you ever run out of motivation? Of course you do occasionally, and it's natural for everyone's motivation to dip after some time. Then if you lose motivation, how do you keep going? Just as we talked about earlier, add more anchor points, more connections to the language, whether that means enrolling in in-person classes at a real language school, planning trips, or signing up for a test. Those anchor points help you stay motivated. Your main ones need to be things that will keep you interested in your target language or the people in your life connected to it. These are the things that will keep you motivated. But it's also important to remember, whether you're struggling or you're progressing rapidly, that you have to keep your learning adaptive. As humans, we are adaptive. We adapt to environments, and this is the same thing. Your language learning path has to adapt as you progress. If you're progressing faster, there's a way to adapt. If you're progressing slower, there's also a way to adapt. 3. How you can keep going past the halfway point. If you've been studying the language for a few months, it's normal to start losing steam. If you're not losing steam and you're progressing, then great job, and maybe you can share some of your tips with us because it's one of the hardest things ever to stay motivated long term. If you are starting to lose steam, remember that this happens with any goal. It can happen to anyone at any time, so you need to learn how to adapt to it. By being aware that these dips are natural and that they happen, you can expect them. So when one does come around, you'll know how to boost your motivation and know how to keep yourself going. Here's what you do when a dip does come around. 1. Review your learning progress. If you've been setting small, measurable goals every month, then this won't be a problem. The goal here is to see how far you've come, and this will help you maintain motivation. If you can see that you learned 50 words in January, 50 in February, 100 in March, and so on, then you have measurable progress, and this lets you know that you're improving, even when you don't feel like you are. Second, if you're a Premium Plus student, you can also participate in the Dean's Date and submit your work on the deadline. Be sure to ask your Premium Plus teacher about it. Third, if you're a Premium or Premium Plus user, you can also check your dashboard and see how many flashcards you've studied and how many lessons you've completed. We track your progress for you. But of course, it's best to set goals like learn 50 words or speak 1 minute of conversation, because completing a lesson may not mean that you've mastered everything inside. So if you've not been setting goals and tracking them, now is the time to start. Otherwise, do you know how much of the language you can speak? Or how many words you've learned? If you don't know, then you'll feel like you're floating around and not learning anything. So be sure to set small, measurable monthly goals. Fourth, create more anchor points to boost your motivation. Anchor points are connections to the language that keep you anchored to the language and your goal. It could be friends or relatives who speak the language, TV shows in that language you like, an upcoming trip to the target country, language classes, or language programs. All of these things, in one way or another, keep you anchored to your language learning goal. So if you started learning a language because your relative speaks it, that motivation may not last forever. It may help you in month 1 or month 2, but by month 4, 5, or 6, your motivation might wear off. But you can decide to enroll in a class or start watching a TV show in that language. That will give you some new reasons to keep going to the language. In a way, you give yourself more reasons to learn. A lot of the time, the reasons why we start something are not often the reasons why we continue them. So don't be afraid to adjust your motivations as you go along. If you've reached a language milestone and are starting to feel a little less motivated, just take a look at these tips. Thorough review, setting anchor points, and reviewing your study methods will all help you keep going in your studies. For more strategies on how to keep studying, just check out our complete language learning program. Sign up for your free lifetime account by clicking on the link in the description. Get tons of resources to have you speaking in your target language. And if you enjoyed these tips, hit the like button, share the video with anyone who's trying to learn a new language, and subscribe to our channel. We release new videos every week. I'll see you next time. Bye! Great work! Here's a reward. Speed up your language learning with our PDF lessons. Get all of our best PDF cheat sheets and ebooks for free. Just click the link in the description.